What's going on, guys? Another bloody day for AMC today. Now down 65% on the week. As I'm talking right now, AMC and APE are at the exact same price. $1.44 for APE after hours and $14.39 for AMC after hours. Split adjusted, $1.44. So retail and institutions decided to buy and sell AMC and APE to make them meet at the exact same price going into the conversion tomorrow. So just jumping into the video here, just starting with the macro. Same shit as always here. You have a downtrend from 2017 until you squeeze in January 2021, and the comparable would be the downtrend here from the breakdown in the flag from the June highs. Macro break, the gap down there, macro break, the gap down here, and then 6 points taking you to the end of the blue on both sides before you drop to the flat portion where you have 3 touches on the bottom, 1, 2, and 3. And then this yellow box here is your breakout and retest iteration. And from there you gap up, and that is your squeeze. So your gap up, macro fractal break, straight line into your squeeze from there. And comparably over here, 1, 2, and 3 bottoms, your breakout and retest iteration that's going on right now. Very, very drastic retest here. But nonetheless, it is a retest. And as I mentioned in my video yesterday, a couple of things happened here. Number one, AMC and APE met at the exact same price, literally the exact same price. Right now, 7:20 Eastern after hours, sitting at $1.44 each. So that happened. We filled. There's a few more gaps on to the downside. I'm going to go over that when I get to it. But filling all of the gaps to the downside on the macro to complete the macro as a whole before we get our next macro. Triggering stop losses. What was the other thing? I can't even think of it. Maybe I'll think of it later. But, just moving on. So getting into the retest now. The 2 yellow boxes here. The first yellow box here, and then the comparable would be this one right here leading up to the January squeeze. So, again, where I left off the last time I was live, roughly 2 weeks ago, was right here. This was my tracking, zooming in on those yellow boxes on the 5-minute. So here would be the gap as you see it here. Crazy wick that you get here as you see it here, and then the top. And then from there you come down to this red line on both sides. You get a stair step move here as you see here. And then you get this uptrend here, which you're forming higher lows here. And then you actually break below it, come back up to reject, and then you gap down to this iteration here. And this is where I left off 2 weeks ago. I showed this in my video yesterday as well. Here it is updated with today's price action as well. So again, same thing, the gap up on both sides, the wick, the top of the move, and then coming down to the red line. You get this stair-stepping move that you see here, the uptrend forming higher lows, and then you break below the uptrend and then reject. We were looking for a gap down to this white line here. We ended up gapping down much lower here, and I've gone over the reasons. I could just go over them again. I have it in my notes. First of all, to retest this trend that you see here, this white trend, it had to be a lower low. We had to come this low to retest this. For how long this took to play out, comparable to this. Also achieving the lower low landmark, that was the one I forgot. We were looking for a lower low for our third bottom, never got it. But now having come this low, we've checked it off, filling all the gaps to the downside, stopping anybody out that had stop losses set down here in this range at all-time lows. And for arbitrage, AMC and APE meeting at the exact same price, legitimately the exact same price after hours right now, going into the conversion tomorrow. Anyways, so we were looking for this gap down here, ended up getting a lower gap, but the price action played out exactly how it should have. From the gap down, you get this uptrend here, which is exactly what we got. And then from there, we were looking for this down move here to a lower low, which is what we're getting now. Very, very exaggerated to the downside here. Down 65% on the week. Volume right now is through the roof. Split adjusted volume, just accounting for AMC and APE. Both tickers and split adjusted, we're pushing 300 million volume plus for the past 2 days. So 300 million yesterday, over 300 million, and over 300 million volume today as well. So now, I want to go over this really quick. So this is your June squeeze here. You can't see the top of the move, but you trade in this flag here for some time, and this is actually the same exact iteration that you saw in January. Coming down from the January highs, you saw this iteration, same exact thing, and then the difference here is in June you break down from the flag. So what we have here on our macro is a 2-year long descending wedge. So just running the top trend line from where this actually breaks down from the flag, 3 touch points. We actually got halted here. So 1, 2, and 3 before you break out here. And then on the bottom, your bottom support, 1, 2, and 3 touches on the bottom. Just ping-ponging back and forth in this descending wedge here that we've been trading in for the past 2 years. So here you are, hovering under resistance before you finally poke through, retest, you're very flat here, and then you got that after hours move, the 100% move that we saw to $9, come back down to consolidate, and now coming down for the actual retest. So this looks very good. There is actually a little bit more room to the downside here. I would not be shocked if we saw more downside tomorrow. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it now. It would not shock me at all if we saw more downside tomorrow. This week has been very bloody. I'm not expecting that to change tomorrow. But going into next week, I think things are going to turn around for us in a very big way. I'm not expecting to bounce here and start a slow climb. I'm expecting to bounce here and just start rocketing to the upside. So this looks very good. Again, a very dramatic retest here, but it had to be to retest this trend. So moving on from that, here is the exact same thing I just showed you, just with OBV now. And I went over this yesterday as well, where the OBV, all-time highs OBV in June on the June move, and through all this selling from $72 all the way down to $1.40, obviously not split adjusted, but from $72 all the way down to $1.40, OBV has been forming higher highs and higher lows here, trading in this triangle. One poke through here, getting very tight between support and resistance here. Poke through, breakout. On the breakout move, you break out on OBV. And then on the retest, we are now pulling back as we are with the actual stock price. So the breakout on OBV lines up with the actual breakout of the macro on the actual stock. And then the retest on the OBV is lining up with the retest on the stock. So this looks very good. I actually went over something 2 days ago, I believe, showing where OBV precedes price action. And I showed a chart yesterday showing OBV historically on AMC, and rising OBV has been a very good indication for upside for us. And on this breakout move, pretty much at all-time lows here, OBV almost hit all-time highs. So both squeezes, January and June, on the OBV, you broke above the all-time high OBV previously before you got your run, right before you got it. So that's what we're going to be looking for on OBV. Now, getting into the levels to the downside, because there is actually 2 more open gaps. I did not realize. I was just looking at the daily. Here is looking at an 8-hour chart with after hours. I just want to go over some levels. So first of all, this red dotted line here is the low of the day today. So we actually filled this gap that we were looking to fill. Just looking at, this is all-time lows on AMC here. This is the flat pattern leading up to the January squeeze, and all-time lows here. So this was the low of the day, this red dashed line here. There is not much price action down here, barely any at all, actually. And having filled this gap here, and I would not be surprised to see more downside tomorrow, the next level of support we have is this white trend here, which is roughly 1155. If we actually come down to this trend here, I'm expecting to fill this gap, because there is actually another gap down here at 1122, and there's one a little bit lower at 1084, and then all-time lows being 1041. So I could zoom in on this, just zooming in on the all-time lows here, and looking at what we have. Again, this red dotted line is the low of the day today. We filled this gap. The next level of support we have is 1155 here, this white line. There is actually an open gap right here. This was never filled. There is an open gap there. It's a small gap, but it's there. 1122 open gap right here. And then there is one more open gap below that at 1084, which is right here. So this gap up right here that you're seeing was never filled, and neither was this. So Two more gaps to the downside, 1122 and 1084. I'm not saying we have to fill them, but at this point, I would not be surprised. What's going on right now is absolutely wild. I would not be shocked at all if we filled both of these gaps to the downside. All-time lows is now 1041. I absolutely do not want to break this level. I do not want to form a new all-time low on AMC. So that's that. Really quickly, because I redid the Fibonacci spiral. The Fibonacci spiral this is just the macro outlook on it, the weekly chart, so I could zoom all the way out and show you the price targets. The top of the Fib spiral is indicating a squeeze to $2,600, which split adjusted, that would be $260 roughly. So the last time I showed this before we got the reverse split, that would have been 300. It's 260, it's right there. I pulled a Fibonacci extension on the move, and my price target is still valid. My original price target of $140 has now just been pushed up to $1,400 because, you know, the reverse split went through. So same shit. Price target is no longer $140. Price target is $1,400. So zooming in on the Fib spiral now, I figured I would just throw this in, showing the resistance of the Fib spiral here, rejecting it, gapping down. You actually break through again, gap down again, and then just downside 65% into the red, back below the Fib spiral here. I'm expecting when we break out of this Fib spiral for good, that will be while we're squeezing. So that's what we're looking for as far as the Fibonacci spiral goes. And then one last thing, and I can't believe I'm throwing this in here, but the UR here, this looks like it's come to fruition now. This move is very similar to what we saw with Volkswagen here. So this red horizontal line here, obviously this is Volkswagen on the left. This red horizontal line is pretty much the baseline here. So the equivalent would be the flat portion of January 2021 right here. So then you get your first squeeze, which would have been the January. You get your second squeeze, which would have been the June, and then from that second squeeze on Volkswagen, you come all the way back down pretty much to ground level, forming a slightly higher low than what you did on what would have been the equivalent to the flat portion, which is where we are now. So the UR here, I think this is pretty valid at this point. I figured I would just throw this in because this looks pretty cool. And that's pretty much it for the video. Macro-wise, everything looks great. Very exaggerated retest we're seeing, but it is a retest nonetheless. I showed you that with the wedge. This is a retest. This is a descending wedge here. When you broke down from the flag from the June highs, trading at a descending wedge for the past 2 years, broke out of it and now coming down for the retest. A very, very drastic move to the downside for this retest, and it's probably meant to be that way, to shake out any last paper hands, trigger stop losses at all-time lows. Again, the arbitrage for AMC and APE for the conversion tomorrow, literally sitting at the exact same price right now. Achieving the lower low landmark we were looking for, you know, everything I went over before. As far as the tracking on the macro, this yellow box here, so this is where we would be on the macro, this yellow box, the breakout retest iteration is what we're in right now. Just getting into that one more time. Here it is. So this is playing out exactly as it should have. This tracked perfectly up until the gap down here. Just comparing it to the move that we're looking at in the yellow box, tracked absolutely perfectly. We were looking for a gap down to this white line, gap down much lower, but the price action still is playing out as it should. Uptrend and then a lower low confirmation. Here it is, and then gap up from there, macro break into your squeeze. So that looks good. OBV looks amazing, pretty much sitting at all-time highs, even though we're sitting at all-time lows stock price. So this looks amazing, and I've shown OBV historically. Rising OBV has been a very, very good indication for upside on AMC. So that is that. And then the downside levels to look out for. Again, we filled this gap today. This red dotted line is the low of the day today, so we filled this gap. The next level of support is 1155, this white line. There is a gap at 1122 right here, and one more gap below that at 1084, and all-time lows 1041. We do not want to break all-time lows on this retest. And then again, the fib pulls and everything. My price target still stands. 140 has now been pushed to 1400 because of the reverse split, and that's pretty much it for the video. I will catch you guys with an update tomorrow. I would not expect anything crazy tomorrow, and I would absolutely not be surprised if we've seen even more downside tomorrow, heading into next week where things, in my opinion, will be turning around and getting very exciting.